Welcome to Ray Reads, a podcast where I talk about the books I'm currently reading like I'm in a sad little one-man book club. In this episode of Ray Reads, I will be discussing Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and as always, spoiler warning. To begin, I would like to discuss the three main characters of Elantris, starting with my favorite, Princess Serene of Teod. Serene is admirable because she goes beyond the typical duties expected of a princess and acted as a diplomat for Teod. She's every bit deserving of her name, modeled after the Aeon Een, meaning wit. Serene is an expert political strategist, which explains how she is able to hold her own against her adversary, the Giorn Hathrin. She even arranges her own political marriage to Prince Raudin of Arleon. She straight up initiated the correspondence between herself and Raudin, and then she proposed to him. Another one of her defining characteristics is her suspicious nature. Her eyes are constantly seeking new enemies to pick out. She doesn't know, at first, what exactly the Giorn has planned for Arleon, but her gut tells her that she has to do everything she can to foil his plot. Serene is wickedly intelligent, and she doesn't believe in limiting the number of challenges she faces. All at once, Serene politically goes head-to-head with the Giorn. She tries to save the economy, she liberates the noblewoman by teaching them how to fence, and she works to care for Elantris. I will say that Serene is sometimes too smart. For instance, she is instantly suspicious and suspects Kalu to be an imposter. And while she's right, as Kalu is merely Raudin in disguise, she doesn't seem to have any solid reasoning behind her suspicions in the first place. Maybe it's just me, but I enjoy it when my characters are often deceived. It's just too simple when a character is right all the time. Anyway, Serene is a woman fully capable of holding her own in a male-dominated sphere. She quickly earns the respect and loyalty of Raudin's former secret political group. Even Hathrin respects her and is intrigued by her. Only a few men, like King Iadon, don't take Serene seriously. As for the women of Arleon, the nobles respect her as their instructor, but they do not befriend her. Her scion Ashi informs her that she doesn't seem to have a lot of respect from the servants, and that she should become more familiar with them. Honestly, I think that Serene should have befriended the servant woman Malea who she was introduced to. Serene's character is supposed to stand for equality and unity here, but she really only mingles with other nobles. The last point I want to touch on with Serene is how she is secretly a romantic. She suffers through not one, not two, but 3 failed engagements. It's sad because her deepest desire is to be truly loved and accepted for who she is. But then, Serene at last discovers the love and acceptance she yearns for inside Elantris with Spirit and the new Elantrians. She only gets to enjoy her time there for 5 short days before her sense of duty drags her back into Kay and its conflicts. The city of Kay has been primed to fall by its king, and Giorn Hathrin arrives to exploit that. After orchestrating the conquer of the Duladin Republic, Hathrin intends to convert Arleon as peacefully as possible, despite his 3-month time limit demanded by Wyrn. Hathrin is defined by his cold logic and his religion, Shu-Dereth. Now I have to admit, I don't really understand the differences between Shu-Dereth and Shu-Korath. Most of the main characters seem to only loosely care about their god Domi and the religion of Shu-Korath. Serene herself doesn't seem like a devout believer, although she insists that she must protect the truth of Korathi teachings. As for Shu-Dereth and Jadith, all I really know is that it's a religion bent on domination that fosters warrior leaders and promotes ambition. So back to Hathrin. He can be a creature of jealousy. He finds himself envious of Dilaf, the zealot who burns with intense passion. Hathrin can't help but compare himself to Dilaf, wondering if his own lack of passion renders him unfit for his elite title and whether he truly belongs. But he finds himself behind the walls of Elantris as he realizes that his god Jadith created him to be a man of logic over passion, and that his cold logic is suitable to serving his empire. I actually like Hathrin a lot. Out of the 3 main characters, I think Hathrin faces the greatest challenges in the story. He struggles alone, unable to rely on his own community of Jarethi followers, yet his strong will and determination keep him going. Now let's talk about Raudin, Prince Perfect. The prince is described as something akin to a saint in the eyes of the people of Arlion. His best friend Lukel even depicts him as a perfect person when Serene asks about her supposedly dead fiancé. He is smart and kind and overly optimistic. When I first encountered this character, I had to wonder, what are his flaws? What makes him relatable? Serene, for example, can be petty, and she's impatient, and, as shown in her outburst against King Iadon, she has quite a temper. Hatharin is also faced with his own complex emotions, which makes him more relatable. But Raoden is just too perfect, and everything comes easily to him. His quests to rebuild Elantris and solve the mystery of Aeon Dor are just too damn simple. Such as with Anadin, the Baron of Elantris, who was known as a madman. All Raoden had to do to win over Anadin, or more accurately Tan, the sculptor, was show him the beauty of Elantris hidden by its slime. It was literally that easy. Then he didn't have to actually win over the Ganglord Shore, since that little problem was solved for him. Honestly, I don't even know why he wants to do all this. What motivates him? How does he decide, day one in Elantris, that he wants to be its savior? I suppose he's acting out of the goodness of his heart, but he's basically a dead man walking here. How can he let go of his old life so quickly? He was the leader of a group who wanted to change and save Arlion. He was a prince, used to a life of convenience and luxury. Now, how does he brush off his past like it's meaningless? Unbelievable. Just as unbelievably, Galladon just happens to have the right book to help Raoden get started on the mystery of Aeon Dor. And then, an original Elantrian who survived the curse these last 10 years just leads him to a perfectly preserved building with even more helpful books to unlock the secret. No wonder this guy is so optimistic when life just hands everything to him. The greatest challenge he faced, besides his fear of becoming Hode, is when her Serene brings food to Elantris and Raoden loses the greater part of his followers. But this turns out to be merely a minor setback in the end. Most surprisingly, Raoden becomes king of Arlion without a hitch. He is outed as a cursed Elantrian, a being long regarded with hate and suspicion. Yet the people still accept him, and some actually cheer for him. Even if Serene was successful in helping the people to see Elantrians as something other than demons, how on earth would they be okay with an Elantrian king here? She could not have erased their feelings of hatred and fear so quickly. This drives me crazy. Another thing, what is the deal with Teod? With all their conveniences, I'd almost believe Raoden should have been from Teod. Like, how does Teod have more records of Arlion's past and current profits? Where did Teod obtain proof that the Forgin Empire was behind the collapse of the Dualdin Republic? In Arlion, it's only speculation, and Serene doesn't even say what specific proof they had. It's just too simple again. And when Hatharin performed his so-called miracle, I hate that Raoden and Serene immediately suspect it's a ruse. Like, what makes them so sure that Jadith can't heal an Elantrian? With all the different magic in the world, it isn't unquestionable. It's kind of lame that they're almost always right, especially when it comes to Raoden's knack for recognizing faces with the effects of the Shiaud. Yet, somehow, none of his closest companions can recognize the Lord's spirit as their former prince. Now to continue my rant on the conveniences on this story, I would like to complain about Adian, Lukel's younger brother. His family successfully hid this Elantrian with makeup for 5 years. I guess this could explain why Keen cooks so much at least, but how on earth does he know the distance in steps from Arlion to Teod's docks? He doesn't even know how this knowledge came to him. Okay, I just have 2 more points on the incredible conveniences here, and then I swear I'll move on. Firstly, it is, again, way too easy for Raoden to gain entry to the secret political group in disguise as Kalu. And then the Korathi Patriarch's decree from the now dead Iadon instituting the change to generational inheritance of titles was way too convenient for Serene. That was one thing she wanted to fix in order to stabilize the country, and then she didn't have to do any work for it. It's all just too easy. But I'm done with that. I'm done. My point has been more than sufficiently made on this subject. Let's discuss Ahan's betrayal now. That was definitely a surprise that came out of nowhere for me. I was under the impression that Ahan and Royale's rivalry was more on the friendly side. Ahan's betrayal feels too extreme, and it doesn't make sense. What a cheap way to one-up Royale. What did he really expect to gain from this childish victory? At least Delaf's big reveal was impressive. I think it was Delaf who ultimately tied this story together and united our main characters. His crazed rage against Elantris came from how he lost his wife, Cilia. Delaf admits that she was the first person to become a first Elantrian when she was being healed of a sickness. This is interesting because she may be the only person to be taken by the Shrouded this way. So Rauden was able to fix Aondor by adding in a line to represent the chasm. But where did the chasm come from in the first place? Hope there's a sequel to explain this. Another hope I have for a sequel is more from the noblewomen of Arleon. They are growing to be a force to be reckoned with. These women stood up to the demon soldiers, including the former Queen Eshin of all people. Speaking of badass women though, I can't believe Karada was killed off. If she had survived, she could have finally been with her child. This woman was fantastic, and she deserved to live. And I think Hathorn should have lived too. Serene forgave him, but I think he could have done more to earn his redemption. He should have lived on and reformed Shu-Dreth. Maybe his religion isn't inherently evil. He ought to have a chance to save it. Despite all of my complaints, this book exceeded my expectations for it. I enjoyed every second of it, and I'll definitely need to get around to checking out other works by Brandon Sanderson.